morning. Good morning. How are you today, Ilene?
I'm great. Almost every day I'm great, and I really appreciate that. That's so.
And that's something that's really amazing to say. Not everybody says that, and that's quite amazing. And speaking of amazing, you've had a lot of curves in your life, I understand.
My life has been full of curves, starting from age 6 months when I was left with a babysitter for a few hours, had whooping cough, and my birth mother didn't come back for 3 days. I was taken away from my birth mother when I was 2. I never saw her again. I lived in a military family. We bumped from place to place every 18 months to 3 years. I was in boarding schools when I was 3 and 4. Military families have a high rate of abuse, so we had several different kinds of abuse. I married at age 19 to get away to get away from them. Of course, married somebody who wanted to get away from his parents too. And it just goes on. My whole life seems to have been what you're calling curves. And so initially, the way that I dealt with curves, and I used anger to get past them. Well, that erupted later when my first husband left me when our daughter was 10 months old. That really angered me, right? And what happens with emotions is when you hold them inside, which I did as a child because they weren't acceptable, they grow, right? So by that point, I was so filled with anger. It just was erupting, and it was erupting on my daughter. And so my whole work with emotions, which is right now culminated in my book, Emotions in Motion, has to do with the fact that I realized back in the 70s there wasn't any information, and I didn't want to keep spewing this anger onto my little daughter. So I figured out, what causes emotions and how do you deal with them, and why do you get over the top angry with uh, when things happen, and can you get rid of it, and all those questions that there were no answers for. And I would contend there are few answers for them today even. So later, however, once I became what I now call a recovered angry person because I worked on it, my motivation comes from for dealing with curves. It comes from my understanding, and the way that I work is that our earth is a big giant school. And the experiences we have, like the ones I had, really in our childhoods, those are our homework assignments, right? And we get to work on those for the rest of our lives. And we're supposed to be able to resolve them, right? And once I understood that I was in school and that if I didn't resolve an experience that came up to me, then it would just repeat and repeat and repeat. That's how we get into these repeating patterns that drive us crazy. But I also learned that the second you learn the lesson that's being presented to you, you're finished, just like that. You never have to repeat it again. So my big motivation, and I know I'm not focusing on a particular thing, but my big motivation has now comes from, oh, did I have an experience? Did emotions come along with it? How can I resolve this lesson? And let me get to it, because I know when I resolve it, I'm finished with it and I can move on to other things. And it's led me to be able to say to you, most of my days are great days.
And what a beautiful answer, because a lot of the women I work with are people that are stuck in their old patterns. And sometimes the patterns can be very sneaky because we have to stop and pause and really think about what we're doing. And sometimes my experience is that sometimes people are scared to find out what's really behind it. It's easier to stay in that pattern and, to get out.
That's definitely so, yes.
What would you recommend to somebody to get out of that pattern of, in your case, it was anger. I know you've gone into a lot of other emotions as well, fear,
Yes.
loneliness, etc. What do you think was the biggest motivator for you? You said with anger, it was your daughter to get out of that. What is a motivator you think that would help someone that's stuck in these repeating patterns that no longer serve them?
Well, we're stuck in repeating patterns because we won't look. You were saying, I don't want to look. The way to get free is to face fact, to look at things squarely for as much as we can see that's really going on, and not what somebody tells us or what we hope is going on or what somebody explained to us in the past, but to look squarely at it. Like when my parents stopped paying tuition, I had to look squarely and say, look, I'm either not going to finish college or I'm going to do it myself. That's looking squarely. Those were my choices, right? And what happens with fear, I'm now doing fearless living. My fear level is about that high now, which is great for me. Uh, and I was afraid my whole life. And what we do with fear is we think if we push it away because we're afraid to look at it, it will somehow magically disappear. Guess what? It doesn't. It sort of goes out and circles around, and this time it comes and hits us in the back of the head. First, we can see it, but when we stop looking at it, it comes around and hits us. And the way the universe or whoever arranged this, these are things that we need to learn, and we're participants in them, and the lessons come up from inside of us. But it starts out with like, Ilene, there's a lesson. There's something you need to look at. Oh, no, I don't have time. It's too scary. Oh, my gosh. And so it goes around and it comes back and it goes, Ilene. And then it goes around and it comes back and it's Ilene, you know? So our pain level goes up and we get frustrated and we think we can't resolve it. But we can. The reason it keeps repeating is because, and this is the way I say it, the universe, once it's presented us a lesson to learn, it doesn't quit. You're either going to learn that lesson or you're just going to, your pain level's going to go sky high, right? And the good news is, as I said before, if you will accept, okay, there's something here I need to learn. Now, the big question, Jody, is how do you get to that lesson, right?
Yes.
All you do is ask. What is it that I'm trying to teach myself by having this experience? And you keep asking until you get the answer. And then you follow the answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That is so beautiful. You keep asking till you find the answer.
Yes. I can give you an experience there that I had because of all those early changes and traumas. For a lot of my adult life until I was in my 50s, when change would happen, even the ending of school and the beginning of school, when my kids were in school, I would freeze and I couldn't make decisions and I couldn't think clearly. Well, my son really did it for me. He decided that he was tired of high school. We found a school in Massachusetts that would take him at the end of his sophomore year and put him directly into college. We found out about it in the end of May, and he was my youngest. I was a single parent. At the end of May, we found out about this school. He got a scholarship, he got admitted, and by August 20th, he was on the plane to go back to Massachusetts, right? Well, so guess what happened? I froze. I couldn't even make appointments with my psychotherapy people. I would say, I'll have to call you back. I was so frozen, I couldn't think. And as has happened, I said, well, okay, enough of this. I've been doing this my whole life. Let's see if I can find out what this is about. So I started asking. I said, okay, I'm ready to learn what it is that causes me to freeze. Whatever it takes, I'm ready to learn this. Please show me. And I repeated that for 5 days. And on the 5th day at 4:30 in the morning, I woke up to some words being repeated in my head. The words were, love the changes. And I thought, what is that about, right? And what I unraveled as I looked at it was it really meant to go back and be like a little kid. If a little child is in a room playing and an adult comes through and says, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going outside, what does a little kid do? Can I come? Can I come? I want to come. They love the changes, right? And what was I doing? Oh no, here comes another change, right? And so I started allowing myself to be more like a child and to love the changes. And I slowly realized that that's how old I was when I froze because of the trauma that was happening. So I literally had to go back and relearn how to be like a little kid. Now, what were the changes? I got my first official book writing contract and a new husband.
Wow. That's a lot
Pretty
of
good.
change. That's
Pretty good.
Did you find that you even froze with the idea when you got the contract? Although it's a great thing, was there some, oh my God,
No,
there wasn't,
no.
or with your new
I
husband?
was so excited about writing that when a friend of mine got made the connection, and I was so excited about it. It was for a short book called Exploring Anger with Your Child. I sat down and wrote it. My interview was the book. That's how excited I was.
How
And
cool.
and I met my husband on the internet. Turns out he was only living 26 miles from me. And in fact, 29 years before, his landlady, he and his first wife, his landlady was my boss. We had been that connected over the years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So no, once I resolved, once I learned the lesson, it didn't happen anymore.
Yes. And that's the beautiful thing, is that it really does clear up. And I had a similar experience, and I know that feeling of being frozen by fear when my father died. I can say that I've learned so many lessons by being willing to go through the pain. And it was pain. It was very painful.
Right. If somebody who's close to me, their fiance committed suicide just as they were getting engaged many years ago, about 25, 30 years ago.
Sad.
And she called me a lot to help her get through the situation. And I kept telling her, on the earth, you have to go through things in order to get beyond them. And she kept going, what does that mean? I said, you have to go through this. You can't sidestep it. You have to go through it like you did, right? Came out of my family, as you could tell, my early childhood, I had a lot of problems. To me, it looked like my family of origin was spiraling down. And I made these changes with my children, and I now have adult grandchildren as well, and I see my family spiraling up. We can also change our traumatic history, our personal traumatic history, and that's another part of my message that I want to share with people. I'm now 77 years old, and I'm traveling the country in my van, and I'm writing books, and I'm appearing on podcasts and teaching classes because that's of interest to me. And my health is good. I'm looking forward. One of the quotes that I've followed for many years is to pay attention not to what I want to overcome, but to what I want to become. So when I hit the road, it's like, I thought, well, how do I want to get older? And I thought of a baseball game with somebody being on third base. And on third base, you usually have two ways you can cross home. One is that you can slide in on your face, and the other is that you can go in standing up. And I decided I wanted to go in standing up. I have a very strong spiritual belief. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And I have concluded, and I think it's true for all of us, but I've concluded that I came to this earth to do some work. I came to help others. And like I told you before, you can't really help others unless you help yourself. So I'm inspired to do whatever I can to be the best person and the most complete person that I can be, so that I can be of the greatest help to myself and to others.
Thank you so much. This has been uplifting and very inspiring.
Thank you, Jody. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so very much.